I wanted to make sure that my kids, one, knew that I was always going to be there for them. And if something happened where I wasn't, that my love and that this relationship would continue. So one of the things that I started doing throughout this was writing a journal for each one of my kids and sharing certain things for my son so that he would know as he grew up what I was learning from Larry and the other guys in the Alliance. So I wanted to make sure that he understood what it meant to be a man as he's grown up. He's 11 now. My daughter is 13 and I was sharing stories. I wanted to give them something physical. If I'm able to give it to them when they're heading out of the house after high school, then great. If something was to happen to me during this cancer treatment, they would still at least have dad's words with them and dad's stories. So that would be able to continue. I think the big thing with legacy is I did think about that a lot because I wanted my kids to see we go through difficult things. It's not if.
Michael, you recently published a book about one of your testicles. It's called Nut Up or Shut Up, Stories of Faith, Humor, Strength in the Face of Testicular Cancer. For many guys going through a struggle and journey like this, it's a very personal, especially with a family involved in all these things, very personal topic, subject matter. What compelled you to turn your story of overcoming this into a book for others to read?
Well, certainly, Frank, and thanks for having me on to talk about the book. Really, what compelled me is the fact that as I started going through this process, I was fortunate and blessed enough to have other men in my corner who had gone through testicular cancer before. Not only that, but I'm married to an amazing woman who's an amazing nurse who helped me understand a lot of medical situations going on there. But really, the reason I wrote this book is because as I was going through my testicular cancer journey, I was looking for other resources and I found a great one, but I was also not finding any books. I wasn't finding any books about it. I wasn't finding a whole lot of guys talking about this. And I wanted to have something out there to help men and to help their families who are going through this understand you can get through it. Early detection is the key. Here's how you do it. And also here's some humor that you can have along the way, because while testicular cancer is a serious thing, it's also funny because it's talking about your balls. So there is a bit of humor in that book as well.
I love it, man. And that's why I have you here today. You know, as I mentioned before hitting record here, this is something that I don't think I understood, the real demographics around the people that are, struggling with this. You know, I saw a stat 1 in 250, men. So about, I think that's 0.4% of men, will have to fight this particular cancer in their life. And there's a handful of famous people, right? You mentioned them in your book. You have the Tom Green. Obviously, everybody knows Lance Armstrong, stuff like that. I think for me, it was always something that you think cancer, most people later on in life, that 50 plus. But the research tells us, and I think what your book highlights is it's a much younger demographic that really needs to be paying attention. So for the guys out there, speak to kind of some of the demographics of where we should begin to look at this and what are some of those steps that we can take in terms of that early detection?
Certainly. So testicular cancer will hit men primarily between ages 18 to 35. However, it is a cancer that can affect men at any age. I've become more involved with an organization called the Testicular Cancer Foundation. And there's been stories shared of, even boys as young as 12 or 13 who have had a lump and have discovered that and have had to go through cancer at that age. So it is primarily a younger man's cancer. I was diagnosed at 41. I've talked with other men who were diagnosed in their mid to late 40s. Primarily, there's the finding of the lump. I mean, that's the key with testicular cancer is early detection. I was fortunate enough to be diagnosed at a stage 1 because I went in 3 months after finding a lump and had that checked out. My oncologist tells me his average is guys waiting at least 6 to 9 months, if not longer, to go in and get tested. And at that stage, it could be 2, it could be spreading to other parts of your body. What you want to do when you are, checking yourself is making sure that, you're feeling around on the scrotum, you're checking for anything that feels unusual. And for guys, we know it feels unusual. It's going to feel like a marble. It's going to feel a very different texture than what you're used to. Sometimes that can be related to torsion or to other things. But if you find something on there, go and get it checked out. Don't wait. It's better to know. They'll do an ultrasound on you and do run a couple of tests just to see where you're at. The other thing is looking for pain in like your lower back or your lower abdomen. If you've got a lump or you're feeling real discomfort in your groin or in the scrotum and you've got lower back pain as well, these are two major signs that you could have testicular cancer at its early stages.
Interesting. So very similar to, I think, some of the symptoms of hernia there. Interesting. You said 3 months you went in to get it checked post kind of finding a lump. The average from the doctors that you've spoken to is 6 to 8 months. What's keeping a guy from the minute you find a lump in your testicles to immediately going to get it checked out?
It's fear, and it's also this thought of, well, it'll go away. I had been diagnosed in August of 2022. In May of 2022, I ran my first half marathon. And so it was about a week after my first half marathon, I started feeling pain in the scrotum. I started just feeling it, that lower back pain and everything. And I thought, well, great, I screwed something up. This is why you don't do marathons right here. And I joke about that in the book a little bit, saying that the half marathon gave me testicular cancer. I guess we can't definitively prove that. But for the first month, when I felt that, I thought I just screwed something up running. I thought it was an injury. I thought there was torsion, something else going on. And I just wrote it off. I said, if it's still here in another month, I'll get it checked out. Well, by the end of the summer, I had not disappeared, hadn't grown much, but I just knew it wasn't going to go away. And so I told my wife, I was like, I have to go in and get this checked now. And a lot of guys, it's that initial fear of, if that is cancer, then what does that mean? If you lose a testicle, if you lose one or two testicles, does that mean you're not a man? Does that mean you can be a dad still? Does that mean all of these things? Like, what are all the different fears and emotional sides that come along with that?
I definitely I want to spend some time there with you and kind of how you were processing a lot of that and the things that you leaned into in order for you to overcome that. I think hearing that initially, it's like, what ridiculous things to think, right? But I'm sure in the moment, obviously that's stuff that all guys would struggle with. It's funny you say, through the training, I'm an athlete, so through the training, you're like, I just messed something up. Like it's going to go away. I remember in 2013, I'd been competing as a bodybuilder for about 4-5 years. And I had one of the most brutal preps. There was a lot of stress in my life at the time. I had really difficulty cutting weight. We went to real extremes with my diet in the last 6 to 8 weeks. I was just depleted. I was having trouble going to the bathroom. I ended up getting hemorrhoids, which I don't know how many bodybuilders during a contest prep give themselves hemorrhoids, but I relate to that. Like, oh, this is something that is a byproduct of like this intense physical training, and it will pass. Michael, can you kind of walk us through maybe your story? Obviously, I want to drive everybody to pick up the book because you really unpack the story there. But for those that are hearing this right now, like maybe walk through a little bit of like that diagnosis, what was kind of happening, and then the stages of recovery for you.
Yeah. So when you get in there finally and you go through and you have the ultrasound and they say, we found a mass now, what's going to happen is they're going to do the test. They're going to send you home and you're going to just essentially wait. And a lot of cancer, if you've talked with guys who've gone through any type of cancer, a lot of it is waiting to hear from the doctor, waiting to hear what's going on. And from the moment we got the phone call that said there is a lump there and it does show signs of malignancy, things go quickly. Things will so quickly. And the early stage, that first 3 weeks was getting set up with a urologist, getting set up with an oncologist, and getting everything squared away to have the surgery. Because once they find a lump and they say sign of malignancy, the thing to be aware of is you are losing that testicle. So no other way around it. They find a lump on the testicle. The only thing to do then at that point is to remove that testicle, remove some of the cords, some of the lymph nodes and everything around it, and do some testing. There's not a way at the moment to go in and just do like a biopsy of a lump on a testicle. So you have to come to terms with that pretty quickly. And then it's, okay, what's going to be the next steps? Once they tell you you have a lump, it's usually 2 to 3 weeks at most to having surgery. They want to get you in quickly and get that out so that they can run tests and they can run pathology to see where you're at. Once you get the pathology post orche, post your surgery, that's what's going to set you up for your surveillance and for your treatment plan and let you know how your next 5 years is going to go. So for a lot of guys, it can be fortunate and be a surveillance. That's what mine was. Mine was initially surveillance, where you're going in every 3 months for scans, blood work, head to toe, essentially of scans. Others, if the lymph nodes do show signs of the cancer, you're going to have to be prepared for potentially chemo or radiation. It really depends on what the pathology is going to show. The two major types of testicular cancer are seminomas and non-seminomas. So depending on that type, that'll tell you how fast it's growing, what type of spread it's going to be. I think the thing to really keep in mind is if you find a lump and they say cancer, understand that testicular cancer is one of the best understood cancers out there. And if you do get an early diagnosis and you're catching this within the first few months, greater than a 95% chance of being able to beat this thing. So that's especially why early detection is key. Don't wait that 6 to 9 months if there's a lump. The sooner you find it, the sooner you can start the plan, and the sooner you can beat this thing and find and do other things in your life.
Do we know some of the roots? And this may be a difficult question to truly pin down and answer for everybody, because there might be a lot of different driving factors, right? Lung cancer. If you smoke, you're at a higher probability, right? And I think there's some other ones out there, but with testicular, like, can we look at lifestyle factors in 5-10 years leading up to it and be like, if he wasn't doing that, it maybe wouldn't have happened? Like, is there any kind of research in around, like, what are the roots of testicular cancer?
So there is research around that, and I've talked with my urologist, oncologist, folks at the Testicular Cancer Foundation, other oncology teams, and really, testicular comes down to primarily like a hereditary or genetic factor. It's not dependent on a lot of things that you do. It's not really dependent on diet. I've talked with enough of the specialists and asked, I had my cell phone in my pocket for years. And every single person that I talked to, they said, no, that's not a cause. Like, that's been tested and proven not to be a cause on testicular cancer. So that is something that I've asked as many people as possible in this world. And the answer that's come back is there's really not much you can do. I was an athlete all throughout growing up into college. And so, I was always wearing the protective cup. I was always making sure that area was safe. And it kind of sucks because you can do everything right, but testicular cancer is one of those few ones that can just hit you at any time.
Other than the lump down there, like, for you, once you've recognized a lump, like, are there other symptom side effects, like in how you feel? Does energy begin to dip? Like, is it affecting testosterone? So now those numbers are going down. Like, are there other signs that we can look for as men? Once we find a lump, we pair it with this. Oh, I got this, and that's happening over here. I don't know why I touched my shoulder, because I doubt that would be where you would feel it. But you understand what I'm saying? Like, are there other signs and symptoms that we can be maybe looking for?
I will say, if you hit a certain point of signs and symptoms, and it's not just cancer in the testicles anymore, it's something that's spread. So if you're feeling a handful of other symptoms, that's not a good sign. But the early stuff is the scrotum pain, is the lump. The energy level, it does tend to start dropping a little bit. It's hard for me to say specifically using my example, because I was coming off of an intense training for the half marathon, and then moving into a pretty fast-paced summer. But I did notice energy levels dropping. Once you get into things like severe weight loss, intense headaches, some of these other things, that's when the cancer has spread. spread elsewhere. So I would say the lower back pain and the testicular pain and the lump, go after you experience those. Don't wait for anything else.
Yeah. Now you had mentioned that there wasn't a whole lot of or research, or not research, nutrition, food, like doesn't have a whole lot to do with the cause of it. But one thing you address in the book is some of the changes that you've had to make post surgery. Can you kind of speak to the role that in some of the changes that you've had to make and implement into how you eat?
Definitely. So this really kind of took place around my second surgery. So in September of 22 is when I had the orchi, when you remove the testicle and that. Within 12 months is when they started seeing growth in lymph nodes in my abdomen. And so at that stage, you will go through what's called an RPL&D, which is just a very intense surgery to remove a section of lymph nodes to make sure that doesn't spread to anywhere else. Because the cancer will go lymph nodes in the abdomen, then it'll hit lungs, then it'll hit everywhere else. Prior to the RPL&D, I decided to really switch things up because what tipped them off was a more advanced PET scan. And part of the PET scan is you have this radioactive sucralose. And they said, oh, the cancer really lights up with the sucralose hits it because cancer just feeds off this sugar. And I asked them, so, well, does that mean then if I cut out a whole bunch of sugar that I have the opportunity to shrink this tumor? And I got a little bit of pushback with, well, we're not looking so much at the diet side of things. And I kind of understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, sugar plays a part in it. I mean, you talk to a lot of people in the cancer world, sugar plays a part of it. So I said, okay, for was it 45 days leading up to my second surgery, I cut out a ton of processed sugars. If I was getting sugar, it was going to be out of the fresh fruits. I was making smoothies. I was doing that. I changed up my diet intensely and went to a pretty low sugar diet, leading into that second surgery. Was including supplements, was including sea moss, because my wife and I had read good things about sea moss in fighting cancer, and was doing everything possible to make sure that the tumors didn't have anything to feed off of. Now, I do write about in the book what happens post surgery, and there were some kind of surprising things that happened after that. But it looks like that diet and a mixture of prayer and a mixture of the positive mindset, staying active, working out, all of these things together had a really positive result. And I do want to direct people back to the book on that part. Now, that diet I think was really, really instrumental in making sure that my body was healthy enough, because when you lose lymph nodes, that affects the immunity and the ability to just drain the garbage from your body. Post surgery, I had to do a very different diet post RPL&D because you remove a section of lymph nodes. They have this tendency to leak this type of fluid because the lymphatic system breaks down the fat, breaks down all the junk in your body. And so if you've got an injured lymphatic system, anything that breaks down the fat kind of starts leaking out of there, and it can cause some serious problems. So I had to go to a very low fat diet for a month after that, which allowed me to really experience, you being in the health world. It allowed me to really experience for, 30 to 45 day period, both extreme low sugar and extreme low fat, and say, okay, what's more sustainable long term? What health benefits do they each have, and able to see, health benefits. But quite frankly, I'm come from an Italian family. My mom's Italian. So between low sugar and low fat, I'm going to go low sugar because I got to have fatty foods. And, there are some healthy fats. I'm talking more into your world now, so I don't want to say anything incorrect on the food side of things. But I think when it comes to diet and cancer, cutting down the sugar, it's been proven that is what the tumors do feed off of, and it puts you in a healthier state of mind.
Yeah, I think it's been the Moffitt Research Center, which is based out of here in Tampa, Florida. They're part of the University of South Florida's cancer research team. Incredible facility, and Dr. Dom D'Agostino has been at the forefront. He's a nutritionist, keto expert, and how it's interesting because I think what he points to is keto being the best diet in preventing cancer, and then for people that are trying to heal. And I don't want to say it heals the cancer, but if you've got the diagnosis, they're, at least from my understanding, and I'm not deep into the research, is they want as many people as possible going towards that higher fat, keto based, very meat dominant diet. So I'm just, curious as how that kind of played out with your experience. You mentioned prayer being a big part, and I think it's even a part, your stories of faith, humor, and strength in the face of testicular cancer. Can you share with the audience, like, your relationship with God prior to diagnosis? Once you got the diagnosis, did it test or challenge your faith at all? And then how did leaning into the faith and growing closer to him kind of help you in this journey?
I'm going to try and sum that up as efficiently as possible because faith, heading into it, I will say my faith has been one of growth for a long time, but the last 4 years, I think with everything that we saw starting in 2020 with COVID and everything that followed from there, you had an option to either dive into what the world was saying or dive into what the Lord wanted to show you. And that's when I really went in deep. I mean, I was baptized again back in 2012. My wife and I have been married for 14 years, and she's, I think, been pretty instrumental in getting me back on that path, 14 years ago. But I really feel like my strength in the Lord came out 4.5 years ago. And so heading into cancer was at a place where I knew no matter what happens, God's going to work through this. God's got this. I talk a bit about the book, how back in 2019, there was somebody that my wife and I had known who had a very aggressive form of cancer, and he lost his life within 6 months. But all throughout that time, he was showing how to stand up and how to live for the Lord and how to push through an terminal diagnosis. And so anything that I was able to do during this time with the cancer, it's because I had people in my corner. It's because I had a relationship with the Lord already. And I'd seen men like Tim and others who'd gone through different types of cancer battles, and they still stood tall or had other people help them to stand during the worst parts. And I said, well, if these guys can do it, I'm going to do it too, because it's not just for me. It is for, it's for our children. It's for my wife. It's for those around to say, when you are faced with something that is absolutely terrifying, because you don't know if the cancer spread. You don't know when the cancer will show back up if it does. And so it was daily prayer. It was daily prayer. And it was understanding that sometimes prayers might not be answered how I want. Sometimes the prayer and the recovery and everything comes after the surgery. Sometimes you're not going to get that miracle before the surgery. You're not going to get a miracle scan that says, hey, everything's clear. You have to walk through. I do want to highlight one little part in the book that where faith, I think, really comes into play, because I've got a tattoo that I can't really show too well to here, but it's of Psalm 91. And heading into my first surgery, I was feeling good. Pastor had prayed for us, and it was just about the time I was going to get wheeled into the OR. And my feeling good and my strength and everything suddenly dropped just 100% at that. And I was scared. And at that moment that I felt being scared, just as I'm wheeling out, my wife points over to the nurse who's wheeling me, and she's got a Bible verse on her forearm. And I was like, oh, and she points that out, and doped up. I mean, I'm getting wheeled in the ER. I don't know how much drugs are pumping through my system, but it's a lot. And so I'm kind of loopy and I'm going, oh, that's a cool verse. And I just lift up my sleeve a little bit and show her that. And we start talking about uh, two of my favorite things outside of my family, my relationship with the Lord and what type of bourbon do I like to drink on the weekends. So it's, I've got one nurse talking to me about God and she shows me her necklace and this tattoo, what that means to her. And another guy's like, so what is your favorite, bourbon to have? And it's like, and in those moments, I realized like God is still there. God places these people in our lives in the little moments and in the big moments to say, I've still got you. And so when I was scared, it was like, God has me there. And I knew no matter what was going to happen after the other surgeries, God would still have me. If I was going to lose more body parts, if I was going to be completely healed, I just knew that, man, just to walk forward in faith and just to accept whatever happened.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. I don't know if anybody in the audience is curious, but I am. What is the go-to bourbon on the weekends?
Man, I like Jefferson Reserve. I've been kind of experimenting with some different things, man. But Jefferson Reserve, was it the oak or the cask, the one the at sea, I think is what it was, the oak cask.
It's a
But
small batch oak barrel. Yeah, yeah, that's
yeah,
great. I'm a big Woodford guy, and I recently got introduced to Horse Soldier. Um, it was founded by these guys were special ops in the Iraqi war. And the story that was given to me, so we went to a horse soldier, I believe it's horse soldier. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might need to do a quick research here, but went to a horse soldier themed restaurant for my birthday, late August, and it was all they had in terms of all their special drinks. And the lady shares with us a story that in the Iraqi war, the special forces that are released first, I guess, literally go on horses, and they call them horse soldiers. And these are the guys at the front line. And there was a handful of them after the war, kind of came back, were struggling and kind of finding meaning and purpose. We're all bourbon fans, and they kind of got together and said, "Hey, let's start this brand." And it's turned into something really incredible, and obviously supporting veterans and stuff like that. But yeah, Jefferson Reserve is a good, clean, small batch. I love it. I love it. Um, Family. You talked about family being number one, or your relationship with God, family, and then bourbon. Going through this, how did maybe your perspective on legacy change? You know, I think one thing that I love about what Larry has created, audience knows that we met at the Dad Edge event. Larry's been a big guest on the show here. I have so much respect for everybody I had an opportunity to meet at the event, because you guys are investing in yourself. But what I see, it's the investments into the family and in the legacy. So when confronted with this uncertainty about the future, I don't know at what point you knew that you were going to, be able to overcome it. I'm sure there was this point where like, you don't even know like how much longer you're potentially going to be here. Thinking about the legacy of your family, the kids, how did this maybe change how you view it, and then even how you approach it here today?
I wanted to make sure that my kids, one, knew that I was always going to be there for them. And if something happened where I wasn't, that my love and that this relationship would continue. So one of the things that I started doing throughout this was writing a journal for each one of my kids, and writing down stories, writing down thoughts, sharing certain things for my son so that he would know as he grew up, what I was learning from Larry and the other guys in the Alliance. I've been part of the DEA for almost 6 years now as a leader over there. So I wanted to make sure that he understood what it meant to be a man as he's grown up. He's 11 now. My daughter is 13, and I was sharing stories. I wanted to give them something physical. If I'm able to give it to them when they're heading out of the house after high school, then great. If something was to happen to me during this cancer treatment, they would still at least have dad's words with them and dad's stories. So that would be able to continue. But I think the big thing with legacy is I did think about that a lot, because I wanted my kids to see we go through difficult things. It's not if. And it's very clear in the book of James. It's when you face these difficult times, not if. So it was, I think, the benefit and the burden of being a dad that you have this opportunity that when you're going through hard things to show kids, how do you walk through the fires of life? How do you not give up? And I think you and I would both agree that part of what you need as an adult male is other men around you who will be able to walk with you in that as well. You need a brotherhood. You cannot lone wolf any of this. So that was the legacy I wanted to show my son, especially, was don't lone wolf this. You are going to need other men in your life, and walk through the fire with your head held high. And even in those moments where anger, sadness, depression, all of those things hit, because I talk about that in the book, sometimes sit in that, but know that that is not going to be a permanent part of where you're at.
Yeah, having a tribe, a brotherhood, guys that you do life with, peers, an alliance, as you guys call it, the DEA over there is so crucial. But I would love your thoughts and just your experience here in the relationship with your wife, though, as well. You got the guys over here. This is where maybe you're going for counsel, for support, for lift up. What does it do to the relationship with your spouse? Because, for one, there is going to be that uncertainty there. You're struggling with doubts you mentioned in the past. We'll circle back to that here in a minute about, questioning maybe manhood, masculinity. What's this going to do? Like, how's this going to affect intimacy? What happens if this doesn't work out? Now there's a financial burden. So talk to maybe just the experience of navigating this with your wife.
My wife, Jessica, is incredible. And so when we got the initial diagnosis, I just remember her sitting there with me and just holding my hand at that moment and being like, whatever happens, we've got this. She's like, I am going to be there with you. She's been a nurse for well over a decade. At this stage, I'm kind of forgetting if it's 12 years or more now, but she has this medical experience and she worked in rehab a lot. So I've been very fortunate to have her understand some of the things that could be happening to me. And I know that, not every guy is going to be married to somebody in the field of medicine. So this is a little bit of a different aspect to it. But as far as our relationship, I feel like it was stronger because of this. I feel like we became even more intentional about our time. We'd been spending the previous 2 years. She had been traveling because of COVID. So she was a contract nurse and just traveling all around the Midwest. And we'd been working hard to pay off debt. And once the diagnosis came in, you realize, it's a potential for, 6-figure medical bills. Suddenly the debt goes, okay, that's maybe going to take a back burner. What our experience is going to be. What is our relationship? And so we still weren't foolish with money, but we changed our perspective a bit and we focused much more on experiences and took a trip to Maui a few months afterwards just to have some time on the beach with the family. But she was there in the moments when I needed her. And she'll say, oh, I didn't do much, but she was still holding my hand pre and post op. And the amount of depth in our relationship, I continue to be surprised, Frank, that 14 years in, man, like I feel like I feel like the marriage was still in its infancy for the first 10 years and it's only become just like so much more incredible. Like I don't even know how that's possible, but every single year. And so the communication was always there, and she allowed me to be vulnerable. And I think for her, though, it took a little while for her to kind of accept certain parts of it, because I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac when it comes to things. And so for a while, she'd be like, you're fine. It's not going to be a big deal. It's not going to be this. And it turns out to be that. And I think for a little bit, she kind of dealt with some feelings of guilt of saying, oh, it wasn't going to be anything. And now it's cancer. And now she felt bad. I said, you didn't know. I complain about all sorts of other things. But the key part of our relationship has always been communication. She was just always very, very supportive in that. And, for guys who have been married, we were done having kids. Like I said, I got diagnosed at 41. But to kind of steer into what you were talking about is if this had happened earlier in our relationship where we weren't sure about if we wanted to have more kids or not, it's good to know that there are options, that there's still a potential to produce sperm even after removing one testicle. And it shouldn't affect function at all. It shouldn't affect your too much of the testosterone output for just losing one testicle. The T levels can dip, but the ability to have kids should still be there. Chemo, RPL&D, some of these other things can really, really attack that and make it so that you can't produce sperm. But the doctors work with you to freeze that, possibly do IVF, but functionality, essentially you're dry firing, that's still a thing as well. And so that part of it, we've had a conversation about what could happen, what could be some of the side effects on the intimacy side. And we just, again, we're putting in God's hands and said, okay, well, if something was to happen, we'll work with doctors to find a way to make things work. Or if things change, then things change, but knowing that the love wasn't going to change, knowing that we were still going to be there for each other. I mean, there's a lot of hope in the book. There's a lot of hope that comes from the story, but there's serious parts. There's dark times, and definitely I would not be here talking to you if I wasn't married to my wife, and if I wasn't a follower of the Lord, if I was married to a wife, like there's so many factors here I've just been so blessed with, and I'm so glad that she didn't mind, and she actually encouraged me to write a book about my testicles.
Shout out to the amazing Jessicas out there. There's so many of them that play huge roles in a lot of our lives. So we love you out there. Some of the changes you've had to make in your life, in your lifestyle. You touched on nutrition here already. I'm assuming you're getting regular blood work done. I don't know if you were prior. What's been the impact that it has had? I mean, I know you lost one. You said it doesn't always lead to a dip in testosterone, but was there a drop in yours? Have you made lifestyle changes? Have you made activity changes? Have you made supplementation changes? And then if any, what role has TRT played in your life, and how can it assist other guys?
So I'm not currently on TRT, so that's not a part of my life yet. I do, like I had said earlier, I'm involved with also the Testicular Cancer Foundation, so I do talk with guys who are on testosterone replacement. At the moment, it's been regular scans, regular blood work. One of the changes is accepting the fact that you just go in for these scans. You go in for this blood work, and it's sort of like every 3,000 miles or every 5,000 miles taking your car in. I know a lot more about what's happening in my body now. And so I'm able to adjust to certain things and understand, okay, a little bit of diet here, a little bit of exercise here, and understand that some things are just coming with age. I think it's made me a little bit less of a worrier about certain things, because I just know if it was serious, it would show up on one of these tests. But it hasn't, let me think here. The testosterone stuff hasn't been a huge effect on me yet. I do go in December to get my scans, blood work, and to check my T levels here. So we'll see how that's going. I have been feeling a bit more tired, a bit more exhausted lately. But over the last couple months, I reintroduced creatine into my plan, and that has been very beneficial. Creatine, CMOS, taken a whole bunch of supplements, and doing these little morning shots of turmeric and ginger. Uh, so all of that, I think, has been keeping the levels pretty well within range. And I'm very pleased with what happens with creatine. Like, it just gives me this surge of energy to be able to go to the gym, to finish stuff out with the day. Because if I wasn't doing any of these things, and there's been times over this past year when I've let the diet go, I've let the exercise go, and I just feel sluggish and like, I feel like crap. And I don't have the energy for my kids. I don't have the energy for Jess. I don't have the energy for things that used to provide me with joy. And I think part of it is it can lead you to diving into depression a little bit if you don't maintain that diet. So it is just something where I've got to be very on the ball and very on top of food and supplements. And as far as enjoying a good bourbon, it's knowing that, okay, maybe it's, 1 to 2 nights out of the week, I'll pour a glass, or I'll have an old fashioned, but it's not, maybe like 4 years ago where I would have a nightcap, every night or every other night. I've toned down on that a bit, and just really focused on supplements at the natural side of things, because I don't want to be that guy that's on 6 or 7 different medications. TRT works well for a lot of guys. Stay on top of the testosterone levels. Do what you can do naturally, because while it is very beneficial, if I was to have to start taking testosterone, that's something that I would just have to be on the rest of my life. Like, I couldn't go off of that.
Somewhat debatable there.
And that's the way that's been explained to me on the oncology side of things.
Yeah, and it might be in that case. We did a great episode, probably 40, 50 episodes back, with Dr. Tracy Gappin, who is one of the leading experts based out of Sarasota, Florida here. That's a concern that a lot of guys have. But if paired with the right lifestyle changes, and depending on how low you are and where it is you're trying to get to, there are a lot of cases. It may be different in the oncology state here as well. So I don't want to speak to that. Guys, do your own research. Look at the lifestyle first. That's always the recommendation from anybody that's telling you to pin yourself without making lifestyle changes. Run away. Go in the other direction, because it should always be lifestyle, nutrition, sleep, hydration, all these things first, and then the drugs being the last resort.
Well, definitely. And I'm definitely not a testosterone, expert on that one. It's just, it's going off of the guys and
what you're being told. Yeah.
What I'm being told, the guys that are currently on it. I got to actually catch that episode that you talked about, is, when we're all done with this, and I'm, probably heading to the gym later this evening, I'm going to listen to that, because I'm really curious. Like, that's the other thing I will say, since this, cancer diagnosis, it's been about trying to find everything in the health side of things. And there was a book that I quote in there about Chris Beats Cancer, and it's just, the diet side of things, as far as, what he did, and finding so many natural ways to, battle cancer, to be healthier. And so I absolutely love that. And I'm looking forward to listening to that episode of yours.
Yeah. And we dived into peptide therapy as well, which is rapidly growing, and new research every single day coming out there, as well as small little, peptides are, they're proteins that your body naturally produces. And now they're finding a way to kind of pharmaceutically manufacture these things. So it models what the natural production already is. Great. And it's a very growing industry. Curious, you talked about how this kind of changed your perception on legacy, family, some of the things that you changed there. How did it change how you even approach every day. I'm sure you wake up now grateful for another day, another opportunity. I mean, it turned into a book. I don't think you were an author prior to the story. Like how does it change your outlook on life and maybe some of the things you're looking to even tackle and accomplish here now that this is behind you?
So it encourages me to continue to try and find the humor in things, even in the dark points, and just know that the humor will have the ability to get me through. But that is such a great question. And I had a conversation with Larry about this not too long ago, um, regarding things like how do you get back into your normal day-to-day life of work, especially if it's a job that you're not feeling particularly fulfilled by. It's for me, it helped me to solidify my purpose in knowing that the job that I have provides flexibility, it provides funds for things, but my purpose doesn't come from my 9 to 5. The purpose comes from the everything I'm doing with my family, with church, with this group, with the people that I meet. My purpose comes from living true to my core values. So I wanted to make sure that if I'm doing something, that I am doing day by day according to my core values. And it comes down to something that my pastor recently said. Like every morning when you wake up, you're choosing to, one, believe the Lord, obey what he says, and trust what he says. And that is it. And a lot of times that's just going to work, it's reading the Bible, it's doing those things, but taking the opportunities when they come and just being open. As far as the mindset though, too, is when we were at the summit, I was just going to be open to new experiences, new conversations. That was my 4th summit. And the 3 prior, I would always just stay with the same 10 guys that I've just had as my group. And I said, I'm not going to do that this time. And what that allowed was just for a much greater experience, an opportunity to sit and talk with you a little bit, and just so many things that wouldn't have been there if I didn't just simply trust the Lord and just take that step out. So it's mindset has been a thing where I've really focused on and just made sure that control the controllables, and everything else just sort of accept it as it comes, and just and do the next right thing.
Yeah, I love that, man. Mike, I'm going to give you a microphone here. Well, I need to hand you the microphone because you're plugged in. But the audience, the demographics, there's going to be thousands of guys that fall into the range of guys that need to be looking into these things. Like I said, I assumed, yeah, at some point in my 40s, I turned 41 2 months ago. I'm like, yeah, maybe this decade I'll start kind of paying attention to some of these things. Hopefully I'm kind of past the age, right? I don't think you're ever fully past it, but the guys listening fall right into that, 24 to 50. There's thousands of them. So giving you a platform opportunity here to speak hope, inspiration, but also awareness into them. So just some parting words, and then we'll wrap it up with our last final questions.
Well, definitely, and I would be honored to have any of the guys in your audience, any of the guys in your sphere, read this book, because it is going to take the fear of testicular cancer and break it down so that you, as a man, do not have to be scared of this. You don't have to be afraid of this, but you can see that this is going to be one thing that has the opportunity to shape and to mold you to make you even stronger, no matter what the diagnosis is. You can still come out of this with hope, with humor, and I would encourage every one of them to explore, to try and deepen their faith as well throughout this. But read through this, through the hope, through the humor, through the darkness, and understand that you will get through this. If you are scared of this, or if you're going through testicular cancer now, you will get through this, and life will still continue to kick ass after surveillance, after treatment, and you will be able to celebrate that victory.
Guys, Nut Up or Shut Up, Michael Knebel, stories of faith, humor, and strength in the face of testicular cancer. Best place to get it, Michael?
Amazon. Yes.
Amazon. We'll have the link to Michael's book on Amazon in the show notes for you guys. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be down there in the description box. Anywhere they can connect with you. I mean, have you turned this into a social movement at all? Are there other places where you're you're sharing any type of content, or is it purely the book?
So I've started to. I'm Instagram. I'm just trying to get that whole thing fired up. So it's kicking cancer in the balls is my handle on Instagram, and I would say trying to get more involved with the Testicular Cancer Foundation, the TCF. So if you're looking if you are a guy going through that, that is a huge thing I'd recommend. But yeah, kicking cancer in the balls. That's the Instagram handle.
All right, guys, we'll have that plugged down there on show notes as well. We'll have the Testicular Cancer Foundation also linked down there for you guys if you want to check them out. I'm sure there's ways to get involved, resources, et cetera, et cetera. Last and final question here, Michael. Title of the show is called The Superhuman Life. For me, it's been a journey of unpacking this and discovering it, defining it for my own self, coming from the place that I believe we're here for a purpose. There's a calling on each and every single one of our lives, but we need to be intentional about the development of that purpose in our life and then how we deliver it to the world. Everybody's unique in their gifts and skills, and God has placed those inside of you to benefit other people. That's my definition. But I love to always get the guest take here. So, Michael, as we wrap up today's conversation, having a second chance on life for yourself, how would you define living?
How would I define living a superhuman life? It is the ability to stand firm in truth, no matter what anybody else is saying, and to move forward and have no regrets with your actions because you know you are being true to the Lord and true to yourself.
Amen. Guys, Nut Up or Shut Up, check it out on Amazon. It's linked down there below. Kicking Cancer in the Balls. Make sure to give Michael a follow. Guys, this is one that we need to get shared. I ask you guys every single week, and I share with you that we can literally double size with the audience if everybody shared this with at least one person. This is one we need to share with every guy in our life. If he's over the age of 18, he needs to hear this conversation. So do the favor for Michael, but do the blessing for the brothers in your life by sharing this conversation with the guys out there. But for Michael, your host, Coach Frank Rich, we love you guys. See you in the next one.